Week 5 has arrived in Big Ten football, and we are here to help you navigate your betting cards for the weekend. I'm your host, Greg Waddell. This is Doug Kezirian. Behind the scenes, we've got Troy Machir with some trends for us, and we've got a lot to talk about. It's only a 6-game slate in this conference this weekend. However, we've got some prime time matchups. USC at Illinois as the Illini try to bounce back from the debacle of a performance in Bloomington last week. Ohio State heads west for their toughest test since the opening game of the season against Washington. We've got Oregon and Penn State, two national title contenders ready to duke it out in primetime under the lights, and we'll help you figure it all out today. We've got a lot to get to. Before we get to it, I want to remind you, we've got an awesome promotion for you here at Bet Rivers, College Football Squares. Bettors who place same game parlays of qualifying amounts will earn weekly CFB squares for a chance at big prizes. You don't want to miss that. You see the banner in front of you on the screen. Go take advantage. All right. As I mentioned, 6 games to get through. We'll talk through all of them here. We are going to start today with Rutgers at Minnesota. Rutgers underdogs on the money line. Minnesota by 5. Over under 51 points. Doug, what do you think?
I think even though we expect a pretty low scoring game and we know the Minnesota offense isn't super dynamic, I think I got to lay the points here with the Gophers. Just the situation really favors them. They're coming off a bye and they lost to Cows. A disappointing performance, but they had a chance to kind of go into the bye undefeated, but it was not there. And I think the defense is dynamic and the offense will be good enough against a Rutgers defense that let's face it, like frankly made Iowa offense look pretty good. Not impressed with the Scarlet Knights on offense. On defense, but offensively they can do some things. I hate laying it in this situation, but I think it's the right move here. Just the situation really favors them. And I think it's going to be one of those times where they're going to have a lead and then second half, fourth quarter, pull away, get the cover. We're going to need a fourth down stop, something like that. So it's not going to be a fun play, but I think it's the right play.
Yeah, Minnesota off a bye. I mean, I thought they battled with Cal. I don't know what to make of Cal after they came out and laid a giant egg last week, but I can tell you this. I thought Rutgers was deceivingly in the game against Iowa. That ended up being a 10-point loss. There was a special teams touchdown, a couple turnovers in that game that I thought swung it. It was a closer game than it looked. For me, this is a stay away, but I agree with you, Doug. If there was one side to lean toward, I like the side that you are on there. Let's keep it moving here and go to a matchup between two top 25 teams. USC on the road at Illinois. Much has been made about Lincoln Riley's teams against the spread record when they have to come away from the West Coast in this conference. He has not covered the spread in a Big Ten conference game coming away from the West Coast in a year and a half. We'll see if that changes against a battered and bruised Illini team. The Trojans favored by 6.5 on the road. Illinois plus 190 if you want to get them outright. Our total at 58.5. What do you like, Doug?
So torn because you mentioned Lincoln Riley's ATS on the road in the Big Ten, what the Trojans did last year. We saw how they looked against Purdue already to start the season. But if they just get going at all, I just don't think Illinois can hang offensively. I think Illinois is going to look a lot better than we saw them last week. They can't look any worse. But I think the spot is great, right? You get the Illini off an embarrassing loss. You imagine they have a lot of focus this week at practice. You get the Trojans playing at 9 a.m. body clock time, going east. Just a tough spot, tough ass. But this offense is so potent, and Lincoln Riley's doing what he does best. And yes, he turns out Heisman Trophy winners at quarterback, but also the run game should be able to really attack. And you just wonder if the will and the spirit of the Illini was broken last week. I think it's going to be choppy. I could see USC trailing at halftime, but ultimately, I think the Trojans are going to be covering when there's zeros on the clock at the end of the game, and it's just going to be one of those games where they pull away, and Illini might be the right side for most of the game, but I think the USC's offense is just too potent.
Yeah, I almost flirt with the over here, Doug, because I do think USC is going to score. The question is just, will Illinois keep up with them? You sort of laid out multiple reasons why the spot is good for Illinois here. Obviously, the against the spread record from the Trojans coming east, but also 9 a.m. body clock game, the bounce back of all bounce back spots for Illinois, a team that I think a week ago thought they were sneaky college football playoff contenders. And who knows? Who knows what Brett Bielema has been able to do motivationally, trying to galvanize this group this week. I still lean Illinois here, partially because there have been some injury updates that I think bode well for Illinois. Everyone outside of Xavier Scott that was injured in the secondary last week, they had 3 other guys that were banged up that ended up leaving that game. They're all back, full go in practice right now. They're going to miss their All-American, their NFL draft pick, their leader on defense. But I do think they're going to get a little bit of a jolt having a few guys back. So it's not an official play for me, just to lean with Illinois. But as you can see, Doug and I kind of going back and forth on this game. Maybe Troy can help us out here. Any trends that we should take note of for this one?
Yeah, and some changes as well. You mentioned that the over-under line was at 58.5. That's moved to 60.5. And I think that's due in large part to the sheer volume of tickets and money we've taken on this over. It's the most wagered on and most popular over-under play of Saturday, by a good margin too. This is should be a very, very exciting game. If not a shootout, I think it could be, like you guys pointed out, kind of back and forth. It could be sloppy early. It should be entertaining. And it's really interesting that 80% of the money's on Illinois to cover, but 67% of the tickets are on USC, and that's actually come down from 77% of the tickets in the last few hours. So we're seeing some people place some bets on Illinois, and it's important to note that the Bet Rivers markets include Illinois, and it's one of our biggest markets. However, you can't bet on in-state, or you can't bet on teams from your state in games in college in the state of Illinois. So this is coming from outside of one of our biggest markets. I think, if we were including Illinois, it'd be far more lopsided towards the Illini. But, each of USC's last 8 games as a favorite against a ranked team have gone over the total points line. We still have to find out about USC, though. I think they're very talented. I've been high on their quarterback all year. But at the same time, Illinois' head coach, I trust to bounce back. He's very steady. He has experience, coaching a really solid, sturdy style when he was at Wisconsin. He tried to implement that in the SEC to mixed results. But I think, it's not so much duck on a pond where you look calm, but your feet are paddling below the surface. So I don't know if I believe necessarily that their will was broken. I just think Illinois or Indiana is like a track star. You have to just race with them at all times. And I think Illinois is still a good team. But I think this is going to be a very interesting game to watch, because I do expect a lot of ebbs and flows.
Interesting. Yeah, we'll have more on those track star Hoosiers later in the program. But thank you, as always, Troy. Okay, let's move to the number 1 team in the country, the Ohio State Buckeyes, off a bye, going out west here to a Washington team with a playmaker at quarterback. We've talked a ton about Washington on this program this year. We loved them in the preseason. We've kind of stayed away for a couple of weeks. It's a big spot here for both sides. And Doug, we were talking before the show. It sounds like you may be jumping around on your position here. What are we thinking?
Yeah, just the first of a few games we're going to get into where I'm flip-flopping like a political candidate. I just thought about this game a little more, and I do think I've fixated on the Huskies' sort of shortcomings or question marks, but I think we have some with Ohio State. And yes, they got the win over Texas in the opener, but Longhorns outgained them. It was at the shoe. I think it could have been more Texas not looking that great or being that great. Ohio State's, I think, defense deserves credit for that one. But this is an offense that, look, last year they struggled at times, even with Chip Kelly calling the plays. That's no longer the case. Hartline's doing it, and we have a freshman quarterback on the road at a tough environment that's, maybe not a whiteout game, like we'll get to in a little bit, but it's still not an easy trip for a team from Ohio State. Now, they have excellent wide receivers. That goes without saying. So if Julian Sandy can get him the ball, then who knows? But the run game's not great. I just don't think they're the typical firepower we saw from the Buckeyes at the end of last season. And I think Washington's coming into this game. They definitely did look the part in the Apple Cup, but whatever. I think you have a dynamic quarterback, Damon Williams. They have stud at running back, some receivers, even studs in the secondary for those Ohio State wide receivers. Could be one of those games where I think the dog might be live here. So it's a lean. I'm flip-flopping. I liked Ohio State early, but we may not see the Buckeyes look that great. They struggled with Ohio, to be honest, earlier this season. So I don't love this version of the Buckeyes team over a touchdown. It's a lot to ask in this environment, and Jed Fish will be ready for him too.
Yeah, I hear that side for sure, Doug. I do. I'm going to hold strong here. Ohio State was one of my favorite plays earlier this week, and I think I'm going to stick with it and add it to my official card. Ohio State -9 was where I got it at. It's now down to 8, as I think a lot of sharps and smart people are starting to jump in on the underdog here. I'll hold strong here. I think spot-wise, this is a statement type moment for Ohio State. They had the opening day game against Texas where I thought they looked fantastic defensively. You're trying to break in a bunch of new guys on the offensive side of the ball, and I think they found their footing enough to obviously get a statement win. Since then, it's been weird. A Grambling State game where, I mean, they could literally sleepwalk through it and win by 70. Who cares? The Ohio game, we talked about it at length a couple weeks ago. Ohio, early in that game, we loved. That boded well. And then I thought Ohio State woke up in the second half and just kind of slammed the door shut, ended up with a 30-point victory. Off a bye here, Ryan Day has just been dominant against the non-elites in the Big Ten. I do think this is going to be kind of a full attention type game for the Buckeyes against a Washington team that I think defensively, it may not matter if Ohio State has some hiccups. They've still got some playmakers that Washington doesn't have the answers for. I thought Washington State, who's pretty woeful on the offensive side, was able to do some pretty nice things in the Apple Cup against Washington. So I hate going against Doug Kezirian. It's my least favorite place to be, but I'm adding Ohio State -8 to my card this week as an official play. Let's move to those track star Hoosiers here. Indiana on the road at Iowa. Kurt Cignetti said he expects a more challenging game than what we saw against Illinois. Who knows if that's a shot at Illinois or praise for Iowa or both. Either way, Kinnick Stadium should be rocking here. The Hoosiers favored by 8 on the road. Our total at 48. What do you like, Doug?
I think it was a shot more at Bielema. I think something goes deep backstory. We'll have to find out eventually. I like the Hoosiers here. Now the numbers come down. You got to respect the market, much like I was talking about with the Buckeyes and Huskies here. I still like Indiana here. I think they open up a can. I don't think this Iowa offense is good at all. I don't think they can hang around. They might get some cheapy with the special teams. And I don't want to say cheapy, but the special teams are a clear advantage for Iowa. That might keep them in the game, things like that. I just think this Hoosiers offense is really, really good. And it's not just Mendoza, it's the wide receivers and this defense, I think, can really shut down this Iowa offense. So Zignetti has a way of pushing the right buttons. I'm really confident in the Hoosiers to get the win. So I actually like a money line parlay. And I should have mentioned this with USC, but 2 road favorites. What could go wrong? But if you money line parlay the Hoosiers and the Trojans, it comes out to like -112 range. I think that's your best way to approach it. I really think Zignetti will be fine. But the problem is we've seen all too often in the Kirk Ferentz era where they just get one of those teams, whether it's Michigan, whether it's Ohio State or Penn State, at home over a touchdown. It's usually against a top
team
in this spot. So you're like, how is Indiana? I just think Indiana's that good. I really do. I think they're going back to the playoff this year. I'm big on like the calendar. I think these teams that are road chalk, maybe like Ohio State too, kind of have enough in the gas tank right now to take care of business. It's later in the season when they sort of hit that wall. But I like this is my favorite play, the money line parlay here. But I do think Indiana gets the job done here. I just don't think much of this Iowa offense. They can't hang, especially with the secondary the Hoosiers have. So I like IU to cover the number at Kinnick, but I also think that money line parlay is the way to go.
I'm in alignment on Indiana here. I think this is a good spot. Rutgers 330 passing yards in that game against
Right.
Iowa. Now, respectfully to Callie Manis, the Rutgers quarterback, he is not Fernando Mendoza. He is not the Heisman favorite. He is not the projected #1 pick in the NFL draft next season. Indiana's got all that. Kurt Signetti knows how to push the right buttons, as you mentioned. I think we're having some mental, tactical warfare happening in press conferences. I don't think Iowa is as big of a threat as Signetti wants us to believe. The moneyline parlay route is interesting. Let me just ask you this quickly, Doug. We talked about a third game. Ohio State also around a touchdown favorite on the road. It's interesting. We got a bunch of those this week. Would you stay away from the Buckeyes if we were going with the road favorites?
I would, because you mentioned the market. I do know a lot of sharp money that's come on the dog, but I have to acknowledge now it doesn't always scare me off, but it's so many people I respect, including some really sharp odds makers who like the dog in that game. And to be honest, I think of those three, IU, USC, and Ohio State, like I don't know that much about the Buckeyes, right? Just they're the ones that are giant unknown. I kind of know what I'm getting with USC. We saw it against Purdue on the road in a sleepy sort of spot. I just think with the Hoosiers, I can't tell you how many people I know that just bet against them last year, middle of the season, starting now, and like, oh, they got to come regression. They got to, and no, like he just was on a mission to, kick tail and take names. And I just know what I'm getting. Like, I don't think they're going to fall flat and get blown out by 20 or something like that. But in the other case, you have Washington. That crowd's going to be rocking. It's a tough place to play. Got a redshirt freshman quarterback on the road, making his first road start, the #1 team in the country. I wouldn't be shocked if Jed Fish and company get the outright win. I do believe the Buckeyes are solid, but they also were really kind of sluggish to start last year, and I just don't know what I have with the Buckeyes. So I'm going to keep them off that spot. It's not that crazy to think that, and maybe Damon Williams is that special kind of thing. Like his variance is really high, so that would be why I would sort of lay off there.
All right. Well, there you see it in front of you. -120 if you want to go with Doug on his USC Indiana money line parlay. Let's get Troy back in here. What data can you give us on how Indiana Iowa is being bet?
Yeah, Indiana to cover is the second most wagered on play, and the fifth most popular by tickets. And Iowa's failed to cover the spread in 10 straight against AP ranked opponents. This is got track meet written all over it from Indiana's standpoint. I'm typically someone who always preach unders as it relates to Iowa games, but this the over at 48 is really interesting. 55% of the money is on the under. That's standard operating procedure for Iowa games, but 83% of the tickets are on the over. And I don't think the scenario is going to play out where it's a 32-28 game. But I think, we've seen their quarterback be just horribly ineffective. They have no offense. And, Indiana does not take their foot off the gas. That is down to their coach, who just wants to be ruthless and prove a point to everyone. And so I think, even though Iowa's defense is good, I think there is far too much firepower. And I think Indiana, there are no lapses. I don't think there's going to be a comeback to earth from the blowout of Illinois, where they said, okay, we did it. Now we're good to go. We can just go and kind of coast through. I think they're going to continue to be full speed ahead. Indiana's last 11 road games against conference opponents have all gone over. So that is an interesting line there. But this is going to be a game I'm going to be paying attention to for at least a quarter or a half, because Carver, well, not Carver Hawkeye, that's basketball. But the Iowa Stadium is Kinnick, yes, is a really tough environment. And certainly when they're better, it is a harder place to go. I remember that Ohio State game from a few years ago. But if Indiana does get out to an early spot, a slow start, I could see potentially playing live under if it doesn't adjust too much. But there hasn't been too much line movement on here. But this is one of the more intriguing games, given the fact that Iowa is not that good.
All right. Thank you, Troy. Okay, we move to the game of the week in the entire sport. It is Oregon and Penn State. I said it at the top of the show. These are two national title contenders. In order to put themselves in the best spot to accomplish that goal, both teams really going to want to win this football game. Penn State at home, whiteout environment. Under the lights at night, they open as 3.5-point favorites here. Our total 52.5. If you were betting Oregon outright, you would get them at plus 128 on the money line. Earlier this week, Doug and I were hinting that we liked the dog here. Are you sticking with it, Doug?
Oh, you said the game of the week in the nation. I thought you were talking about UCLA Northwestern, but I guess that's next. That's next game. I flip flopped on this game too. The spot is so much better for Penn State. Think about what Oregon's had to do just from a flying around standpoint. They had to go Northwestern, then back, and then now they have to go all the way across the country. And if Dan Lanning wasn't the coach, I'd be loving Penn State. I mean, historically, even under small game James, the Nittany Lions are fantastic against the spread in whiteout games. It is a night game at Beaver Stadium. You have both coordinators that they went and got to really prevent Franklin from kind of botching something in game. Knowles is the reason that he can handle this Oregon team. And let's face it, the playmakers on the team, the quarterback, this is a tough ask. The playmakers on the Ducks are young. And to go into this environment with this sort of game plan and Knowles and Penn State just ready for this game, and it's early enough the season where I don't think Franklin is automatically going to screw it up. The key is the Oregon speed. Can Penn State sort of make the right plays? I just don't think it's an automatic buy on Oregon like I thought it was. I would not be shocked if Penn State covers here. I do think there's an element, and even Franklin talked about it this week. It's just they've been playing so vanilla all season waiting for this game. They've been training and preparing for this game since the beginning of the summer. Whereas Oregon's had to show a little bit, right? They've had a couple game, like maybe the rivalry and things like that. I think it's gonna be a fantastic game. I'm thrilled to watch it. I can't lay the 3.5 because it's Franklin against Lanning. But I wouldn't be shocked if Dante Moore doesn't play that great and Oregon's overwhelmed. I just think but this is not a Chip Kelly Oregon team that had trouble in certain spots like this. I just think the coaching edge and getting 3.5 favors the Ducks. That's where I lean, but I'm not playing this game.
I'm right there with you. I've gotten more hesitant as the week has gone on. Now, I am going to say this. I still lean Oregon. I still want to talk myself into Dan Lanning here. This might be a watch one drive game for me. I want to see what Dante Moore looks like under center. I want to see if he's shaking. We know the whiteout's going to be shaken. I mean, that clip of Shea Patterson taking the delay of game on the first play, I've seen that like 10 times this week. And every time I see it, it makes me more and more hesitant to add this into my official slips. So for me, I just want to see how Oregon looks. If they do start marching, then you just kind of get the sense that Moore has something special about him composure-wise, then I think you can still add Oregon here. Maybe not at 3.5, but maybe still on plus money outright. But either way, if he comes out and is visibly terrified, shaking a little bit, then it's just a total stay away for me. I can totally see this game going both sides. So I'm in alignment with Doug here. Let's get Troy back in one more time here for us. Big game. Any big trends for the big game?
Before I get to the trends, I just want to echo kind of the Shea Patterson moment and whether or not, Dante Moore will be able to handle it. I've had a chance to go to a lot of awesome events in my career and even before my career. And a Red Sox come from behind win against the Yankees in the ALCS championship games of the like. I went to, I believe it was the first real whiteout game that Penn State played when I was in college against Troy Smith and Ohio State. It is, to this day, the loudest venue I've ever been in my entire life by a country mile. Now, Autzen Stadium, where Oregon plays, is an amazing venue. It only seats 54,000 people. Happy Valley seats well over 100,000. So I am in 1,000% agreement with Greg about wait and see. See what that first drive is like. If the Ducks aren't bothered by the noise, which most teams are in whiteouts, and if they can maintain their speed. But to your points, the public is, kind of split, kind of down the middle. Penn State to win outright, 66% of the money and 63% of the tickets. Now, Oregon to cover is unanimous on both money and tickets, 55% of the money, 67% of the tickets. And the over is 74% of the money, 67% of the tickets. You'd figure maybe with how lauded these offenses are, that the over would be, a little bit stronger on the money. It is 52.5, but I think the environment plays into that. Delay of game penalties, Oregon potentially being backed up, to start drives, things like that. But the book will be rooting for Oregon because, over 8% of all the college football money on Saturday is on Penn State to win and cover. Now, that being said, Oregon to cover is the third most popular Saturday college football play by total tickets. And Penn State has failed to cover the spread in each of its last 4 games. So, I think to your point, this is a very tricky game to handicap, but I would be on, Greg's side, which is wait and see. But make no mistake about it, this will be the most wagered on game of the weekend by a good margin.
Yep, and likely the most watched game of the young season thus far as well. All right, Troy, thank you very much as always. Doug joked about it. The real game of the week, the UCLA Bruins in Evanston taking on the Northwestern Wildcats. It's our final game of week 5 here. Deshaun Foster out for UCLA. We came on this program maybe 10 days ago or so and discussed, hey, is it actually a time to buy back into the Bruins motivationally? Could they just have a little head coaches gone boost and a come together galvanizing moment? Northwestern certainly an opponent that would open the door for something like that, but it's hard to know what to expect from this Bruins team. So you see the spread in front of you here. Northwestern by 6.5, our total at 45. Doug, what do you expect from this Bruins group?
I've been to a whiteout game, but I've also been to Evanston, and boy, does it get rowdy. No, in all seriousness, I just think it's too many points. Northwestern over the years is really great in the underdog role, not so much in the favorite role. Now, we did talk about the coach bump that sometimes happens midseason in all sports, even professional sports. I had to wait to see the reports from Westwood, and things are good for the Bruins. Guys aren't running out of the program, transferring like they're allowed to when a coaching change occurs. All signs point to a team really positive. Off a bye, there's enough talent here. I have to take the points. They are not completely inept. It's just too many points. This line should be 3, 2.5 even. I think UCLA will be the right side here. I don't love it. Not my favorite bet by any means. But there's just no way I'm laying 6.5 points with Northwestern. I just cannot. And I think there's enough good vibes and a situational spot here. You got to back the Bruins and the points. Hold your nose and take them. Won't be pretty, but you don't want to be laying 6.5 either on the Wildcats.
Yeah, it's a totally uncomfortable line both ways. I mean, I don't think anyone's going to be comfortable backing UCLA, but 6.5 is just a crazy number to back for a Northwestern team that has been so uninspiring visually this year through a couple of weeks. I think it is much more likely that UCLA does emerge and take a slight step forward, but God, they might need 3 or 4 steps forward to beat Northwestern from where they've been at under Deshaun Foster. The reality is he may have just been such an incompetent head coach that any new voice in that locker room could get the 5-star talent that is Nico Iamaleava to just get it going a little bit. That's got to be the hope if you're backing the Bruins. So I lean to the Bruins as well. But yeah, I don't know that there's anything that could get me to actually play this game heading into the week. Let's wrap the show with our best bets. Take your pick of your favorite on the entire card this week, Doug.
I'm torn. It's either Hoosiers minus the points or the money line parlay. Indiana and USC, but I'll go with the money line parlay. We're getting towards October. Trojans should be able to flip the switch at some point, whether it's the road dust they need to kind of dust off or just shake off the cobwebs of the early start time and the 9 a.m. body clocks. But I can't see them losing this game. I think you're going to get a good effort out of the Illini. Bounce back. Players don't reach that level of football and get drilled like they did last week and just kind of mail it in. They're going to bounce back and bring something. But I think the injuries are mounting in the secondary. It's the wrong team to face for the Illini. And I just think Indiana's too good. Zignetti knows what to do. They were trucking opponents all year in this kind of situation. Smart money came in against them all the time, and they just continued to cover. I just think there's a little swagger right there with that ball club, and I'm gonna keep riding the Hoosiers. So I'll do a money line parlay as my top bet, USC and Indiana.
I love it. It's creative, but I think there's good value there. And I'm going to be standing alongside you because my best bet of the week is just going to be Indiana, -8. I'll take it. I buy that Signetti's group is for real. I was so impressed with what they did last week. I think this Iowa number is maybe 3 or 4 points off of what I think is a true number between these two teams, even at Kinnick Stadium. I thought that score against Rutgers really was inflated. Rutgers outgained them. Rutgers moved the ball at will, and that is not a special Rutgers offense. So I'll lock in Indiana -8. You've got Doug giving us USC and Indiana on the money line as his parlay best bet of the week. Doug, thank you as always. It's great to do this show twice a week with you. Reminder, you can get this show twice a week. Every Wednesday, every Friday, we're bringing you the 10 on the Bet River Sports Network. Reminder, we are part of College Sports Rush, where you can also get Sports Better's Paradise with Jimmy Ott. Make sure you tap in to those weekly college football promotions. The CFB Squares is where it's at right now. Bet responsibly, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy week 5. Good luck with your picks, and we'll see you next week.